video. Today, I'm going to be going over with you the stock market crash in 2008. I'm going to give the simplified, quick summary of it. So I'm not going to put in all the details as far as what happened, but I do want to give like a very simple summary as far as what happened in 2008 with the stock market crash and essentially how this could replicate itself again in the future, how we could experience another possible crash. All right, so thank you for tuning in. If you find this helpful, comment below or subscribe to this channel. So let's go back in time. Okay, let's go back in time as far as in the 2000s. All right, so what happened in the 2000s is that before 2008, so what happened in the early 2000s is that we had a time where the government was trying to really boost the economy. So they cut interest rates, right? So they cut interest rates and they were also trying to boost the economy by encouraging more people to become homeowners. So at that time, not like the way it is now, but at that time, it was a lot easier to get a mortgage loan. In fact, you didn't even really need to have a job or to have really good credit. They were a lot of banks were issuing something called subprime loans, which help predominantly low income individuals or individuals that didn't even have a working job. So now what was happening is that a lot of people were getting homes, right? So the market was starting to boom. Lots of people were getting more and more homes all across the country. Millions of people were getting homes, and these were people that, like I said, didn't necessarily have a job or stable income. All right. So then what happened is that unfortunately a lot of things during this time was not very highly regulated as far as like the banks and the financial system. So what happened is that the banks, instead of holding on to the mortgage or the loans, what the banks would do, so like for example, if house A had a mortgage, house B had a mortgage, house C had a mortgage, what the banks would do, instead of the banks just treating those mortgages individually or separately, they would combine hundreds, if not thousands, of mortgages together into what you call MBS or mortgage-backed securities. So this was pretty much a way where they combine mortgages together with the use of something called the collateral debt obligation. So what they would do is that they would take the loans that people were getting from their mortgages, and then they would go and resell it to investors. So they would resell the loans to investors, and investors were happy, right? Because the way that they figured it is that, okay, well, the cost of homes are going to go up, so they're going to make more money on the loan. So that's essentially what happened. The cost of homes started to go up and up, and all this, like I said, all this happened over time. It wasn't immediate, right? So the cost of homes started to go up. Then, as the cost of homes started to go up, then what happened now though is unfortunately the mortgages started to increase. So people's now mortgages were going higher and higher, and now people were starting to default on their mortgages. So people started to default on their mortgages, and as a result of defaulting on their mortgages, now this is where the crisis started to happen. So now there was a time period where a lot of these homes, the majority of the mortgages that were defaulting were people that were issued these subprime loans. So now, because now this was happening, all these mortgages were defaulting. Now banks were starting to go into crisis mode. So now you have big banks, like I want to say one is called Bear Stearns banks, Lehman Brothers. Those banks began to crash, right? And they were either I think they were bought out or sold, and this is how we start to see things begin to collapse. So, and then now things were was being fueled more and more homes, and now the people that still kept their mortgages, their prices continued to go up, and their mortgages continued to go up as well. So they also started defaulting on their loans. So this just literally went into a huge wave of more and more of the essentially everything crashing until it hit a huge crash occurred in to September 2008, where literally the stock market crashed. And so millions of Americans went into unemployment and lost their homes. And so then as a result, what the government did, they created something called TARP. TARP was pretty much an emergency relief funding. It was almost about $800 billion. I want to say it was like $787 billion to pretty much inject into the economy to help with these banks recovering and help the economy overall and to begin to reverse everything. This was actually signed by President Barack Obama, who signed the TARP funding act in order to issue these billions of dollars into the economy. Now, the effect of it, though, people still lost their homes. It still took years before people recovered, but eventually things began to improve. So that's in summary. Like I said, I know I left out a lot of details. That's in summary what happened with the stock market crash. The problem though is that because because the banks were not really regulated, because the banks were essentially the better term for it was greedy. Okay, greedy. They wanted to you know get more and more mortgages into the pipeline essentially, and so they've created looser restrictions. So like I said, it made it even more easier for more people to get mortgages, even though they couldn't afford their mortgages. And so then we had this stock market crash. So that's in summary the 2008 stock market crash. In another video, I'll talk about why I believe there will be another crash that's going to be happening very, very soon and what that is going to look like.